So our afternoon panel is going to be some space just to thinking about transformation journeys. So we've kindly got representation from Calderdale, Solihull and Northumberland, so across the country. And they're going to be telling you different aspects of their transformation journey of family hubs and Start for Life. When we're putting this conference together, I mean, there's so many examples of great practice across the country. So it's hard to condense it down, but we're really pleased to have Kate, Rachel, Denise, Louise, Jackie and Helen with us today, and they will introduce themselves as we go along the panel. So I'm going to hand the clicker over now to Kate and Rachel from Calderdale.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rachel Smith. I'm a senior public health practitioner from Calderdale Council. You're probably all thinking, where is Calderdale? We're actually located in the heart of West Yorkshire. You may have seen some of our lovely towns and villages featured on things like Happy Valley, Last Tango in Halifax. I can see you nodding. Gentleman Jack, yeah. Or you may have visited the Peace Hall. We've had quite a few music events on there this summer, including Tom Jones and Brian Adams. So that's just a plug to visit the area. So I'm the lead in family hubs around infant feeding. I'm here today with Kate to tell you a bit about the work we've been doing in our infant feeding strategy. Now, unusually, the Family Hubs programme sits within our public health team at Calderdale Council, and our Director of Public Health is the Senior Responsible Officer. So our presentation today is to share with you how we developed our infant feeding strategy, explain the approach we took and the next steps. But I'm going to begin by telling you a bit about our strategic context and where it kind of fits within the work of the Council. So following the pandemic, partners in Calderdale worked together to create our wellbeing strategy that's displayed on the screen there. It sets out the priority outcomes that partners will work together with the residents and communities to achieve what people want of all ages to live a larger life. So 2 of the 4 priority outcomes are actually focused on children and young people. So we have starting well and developing well. So starting well is the life course domain that's relating to babies, children aged under 5. And I say babies because I think it's important that they're recognised as a voice within the work that we're doing. The main outcome goal that we're working towards is that children are ready for school. And this is measured, and I know it's been mentioned previously today, by the good level of development at the end of reception. And we're particularly focused on seeing a narrowing in the gap on children on free school meals and those that are not on free school meals to try and address the inequalities. We have a Starting Well strategy and a multi-agency Starting Well partnership board that oversees the work of the Family Hubs programme. So it's very much an integrated piece of work that we do in Calderdale, and we have work streams that work underneath sort of that and feed up to that. So the Family Hubs programme really brings the operational structure to our approach in Calderdale so that we can realise the ambition for children and young people to live a best life as possible. And it's a key delivery vehicle for implementing our Starting Well strategy, and I think Sarah has also alluded to that in her presentation earlier. So the Family Hub programme as a whole really aligns with our health and wellbeing 4 ways of working that are displayed on the screen. And the one that's particularly relevant to our project is the 4th one, so empowered and resilient communities. So enabling communities really to play their part in creating health and wellbeing and making the most of what exists already in communities is so important. So why did we develop an infant feeding strategy? So, as you'll know, within the Family Hubs programme, each of the 4 workstream areas has minimum expectations that they need to meet. And within the minimum expectation for the infant feeding workstream is an infant feeding strategy. And we didn't already have one in Calderdale, and we saw that as something which was a key priority to sort of map and drive our work forward. We also have a multi-agency infant feeding workstream group. And as you can see, we've got representation on there from midwifery, health visiting, Family Hubs, the Children's Ward and breastfeeding peer support. And really we're committed to developing a strategy, but we wanted to develop that with our communities. So to understand where we needed to focus our efforts, we really looked at our trends in our data to begin with. And as you can see from the information on the screen, our rates for breastfeeding initiation, so breastfeeding in those early days, have been decreasing in recent years. And we also looked at the continuation rates for breastfeeding, so they're 6 to 8 week data. And whilst it's better than the England average, those were low too. So we looked at our ward level data and the demographic data to really focus and target our efforts. What we found were rates of breastfeed initiation and continuation differ between different groups of women across Calderdale, including for age, ethnicity and neighbourhood, so neighbourhood being the indicator of deprivation. And what the data was telling us was women who are younger, of white ethnicity and who live in areas of higher deprivation are the least likely to continue breastfeeding, reflecting some of the long-standing statistics at a national level. So who did we hear from and why? We knew we couldn't develop a strategy without hearing from those breastfeeding women, their partners, the dads, and the people in those and families in those communities. Often with this type of research, the approach has been a deficit model, so asking questions to women about why they didn't breastfeed. And what we found from doing that is that women aren't always that keen to speak to us and to tell their stories, so we turned that on its head. And we took an approach where we asked mums what had enabled them to breastfeed, so that strengths-based approach that's been talked about earlier today. And we were particularly interested to hear from certain geographical groups and age groups where breastfeeding is low. So the mums in those areas who were breastfeeding really is what we wanted to really capture. And what we found, and what Kate will expand on further, is that women really did appreciate having that space to talk and tell their stories, and the opportunity to just speak to somebody about that and be able to feel proud from what they've done and to not feel judged in any way. But most importantly, with their stories, we could connect our data and with the narrative, and this, according to our Director of Public Health, as it says on there, is where that magic happens. And I know somebody put that in the feed earlier. It's about that magic, and what we say is the gold dust, that really important bits of information. So we've worked with Ideas Alliance, who are known for taking a strength-based approach, and we have done community research, and Kate's going to tell you a little bit more about Ideas Alliance and the appreciative inquiry approach that we've used in Calderdale.
So I'm Kate, one of the directors at Ideas Alliance. We're a social consultancy, and we work with public sector organisations to bring people's voices into policy, service design and decision making. We help organisations move towards co-production, we help connect practice with community power, and we support movements that change systems. So our role with Rachel's team was to undertake some community research to inform the infant feeding strategy. We've been working in Calderdale for the past 3 years, helping them co-design the family hubs. And so I'm just going to talk to you a little bit, I'm conscious of time, about the community research approach that we took. So we began, as we always do, by involving everybody at the start in a co-design workshop. So that included breastfeeding mums, peer supporters and infant feeding specialists. And during that session, we introduced our appreciative approach to the research. So an approach which uses strengths, values and dreams to generate imagination and innovation. And we created a space for people to discuss and plan and co-design the questions together. A big part of that was the community research. So we recruited and trained 4 local mums as community researchers who could connect with breastfeeding parents and hear their stories. The mums, those women had lived experience of breastfeeding, and they came from Pakistan, Honduras, Wales and England, and had real diverse lived experiences from navigating the asylum process to teaching baby yoga. Using a community research approach is really helpful when trying to reach people who are seldom heard and wouldn't normally be reached through more traditional methods of insight gathering. And as Rachel touched on, connecting stories to data is really where community research comes in. It puts the power of knowledge generation into the hands of the community rather than having external experts identify needs and strengths. It can help build confidence and strengthen relationships between people, which can lead to lasting change. So the pictures on the right are a really good example of why we need to seek out the stories behind the data. And just to give you an example of some of the questions that we co-designed with infant feeding specialists, with the mums, with breastfeeding peer supporters, using an appreciative approach. These are some of the questions that were included on the discussion guide, where the community's researchers had conversations with mums. And like Rachel said, they produced some absolute gold dust. We asked what practical support had made a difference to them and why. We asked what emotional support made a difference. This one in particular gave us so much rich insight. In times of difficulty, who or what made a positive difference. What we found was so many mums had never had the opportunity to speak about, talk about their breastfeeding journeys, their breastfeeding experiences. So we found, well, one, that they talked for a lot longer than we maybe expected them to, which was amazing. We went through a lot of tea and biscuits. But having questions like that in times of difficulty, who or what was it that made a positive difference? When you nearly stopped, what was it that helped you to carry on going? Who do you trust to give you information about or advice about your feeding choices? What 3 things could help make your breastfeeding experience even better? And then we did some dreaming, which is part of the appreciative inquiry kind of process. If you could create your ideal breastfeeding support network, what would that look like? I'll whiz through this because I'm conscious of time. We heard some amazing things, but what's been brilliant for Rachel and the team developing the strategy is that the voices of mums and dads and families are scattered throughout the strategy. So we heard so much around the importance of peer group support, of resources, lots of feedback about breast pumps, and lots of very honest feedback about that, the importance of professional support and the importance of partner support. Things like when my partner realised he could bond with the baby in different ways, there's such a misconception where people believe that giving bottles is the only way to connect, and there's so much more partners can do to feel involved, like bath time, singing, contact, sleeping, etc. And then we held a sense-making workshop, so that's where we bring everybody back together who's been involved in the research and in the insight gathering to make sense of what we've heard all together and plan next steps. So the community researchers had conducted 69 interviews, and we also did an online survey as well, which gathered 115 responses. So over 30 people, project partners, attended the sense-making workshop, and we explored together how the findings could shape breastfeeding support in Calderdale, and we discussed opportunities for next steps. But I just wanted to just leave you with one slide. So for us, it's not just about the insight that we gather and the impact and how that feeds into the research, but actually the outcomes for the community researchers themselves. So one of the 4 community researchers went on as a result of being involved in the project to get employment with the National Breastfeeding Charity. One is now volunteering as a breastfeeding peer supporter. 2 have inputted to health and wellbeing board meetings, and 2 are now involved in some community research that would another project that we're doing in Calderdale to support the development of the parent-infant relationship teams. Back to you.
So what now? So we took all the insight and those nuggets of gold dust, and we shared that with Professor Amy Brown, a leading academic in maternal and child public health from Swansea University and a leading author in the field of infant feeding. So combined with our insights and with the evidence on infant feeding, that has influenced our priority outcomes that we have for our strategy. So they're numbered on here, but actually we decided once our strategy has been published that to remove the numbers because we think that all are equally as important. So as you can see on there, I won't read through these, but you can have a look in the slides afterwards. They really are about choice, well-being, targeting breastfeeding promotion to all family members, upskilling our workforce, and also focusing on spaces where women and families visit to encourage breastfeeding to be sort of seen and be the norm. So on next steps. So thanks to Anna for inviting us today, because it gave us a deadline to get our strategy published. So it's actually on the website today. So I'd encourage everybody to have a look at that. We're sharing the link. It's Calderdale Family Hubs. We've actually got a simplified infographic that we're going to have displayed in our family hubs that has got a QR code for families to follow through and read it from there. And then we've got a full 35-page version if you're wanting to have some bedtime reading. So we're now developing an action plan, and we'd like to bring back all our breastfeeding peer supporters, community researchers and practitioners and mums to map that out. And we'd like to use those findings to implement our Year 3 of the Family Hub's delivery plan and hopefully beyond. It's transforming the way that Calderdale is approaching insight. Already the parent-infant relationship team are looking at using this approach for their strategy development. We're exploring ways of using the co-design approach in future projects at the council. We've already trained elected council members to use an appreciative inquiry approach when they go out into their wards to do research. And ultimately, we're working towards a system change to increase breastfeeding in Calderdale, and Family Hubs is facilitating that approach. My last slide, I promise. So from all the insight and story gathering that took place, the main thing we heard, and I think this is a resonating theme today, is that, in the top things that mums talked about were family, friends and communities, so relationships were key. And Sarah said that earlier, that relationships and connections are very much at the heart of the Family Hub's approach. And for the mums that shared their stories, they really highlighted that relationships are the enabling factor. They really valued the trusted relationships they had and that they found as being part of a community. On the screen you see some things that we're highlighting there that we've done and have been developing. So we've got our Welcome to Breastfeed Calderdale scheme, and that's about encouraging relationships with our local businesses and venues to sign up to support mums to breastfeed. And we've got 88 venues signed up so far. We've got a Nourish and Nurture group, so that's combining baby massage with breastfeeding information in a relaxed and social environment. So we got feedback from mums, and they were saying that they thought that the groups were where mums went, and it was all very much focused on sort of the breastfeeding and getting, feeding babies and things, but really it's more the social side of thing as well that we wanted to promote, that you don't have to go there if you've got a problem. It's actually for mums to meet with other like-minded mums. So we really changed the frame on that and the name of what we call the groups. And we've also obviously got our breastfeeding peer supporters, and they are really key to this, in peer-to-peer support. So mums who breastfed their babies supporting other mums to breastfeed, either in the hospital, going onto hospital wards, in the groups, on the phones, or on the Facebook groups. So we're really proud of the work that we're doing in Calderdale, and we really welcome the opportunity to come and showcase it to you today. But more so, we welcome the opportunity to build our relationships with other local authorities that are here today, but also online, and we'd welcome others to sort of share what they're doing, but also we're welcome to share and connect with you too. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So coming down from beautiful Yorkshire, we now wind up in the West Midlands. We should take from that what you will. But I can't think of any TV shows actually in Solihull. But I think we were mentioned a couple of times on Peaky Blinders, so we'll take that as a bit of a claim to fame. But I'm Denise Milnes. I'm Strategic Lead for Children's Public Health at Solihull Council, and I'm joined today by my colleague Louise Hudson, who is our Senior Strategic Delivery Manager for Family Hubs. And the reason we've started with this photograph on here is no accident. This really represents to me and the team just what we've achieved over the last 3 years. And actually that picture there with our Smithswood, which that's the local community the Family Hub's in, a little toddler with her parent coming into the Family Hub, it was unthinkable for us 3 years ago. And when the exercise earlier was, what word would you say about Family Hubs? My first thought was whirlwind. That soon turned into hurricane, but actually put in challenging. And then actually I also followed it up with privilege, because it really has felt like a complete privilege to lead this transformation programme. And somebody described it as a career unicorn that you don't see very often. They're magical, but once you've seen them, you know you always have, but nobody believes you, you quite did it. So, yeah, we'll kind of grab onto that unicorn. But, yeah, just having our real families in our hubs really has gone from literally from us thinking we had nothing to something. So, a bit of Solihull context then. So, we're in the West Midlands, as I mentioned. We've got large disparities, very similar to what we were hearing about in Tower Hamlets in some respects. We've got areas in the most deprived decile, literally 15 minutes up the road from mansions that look like the one at the bottom there. That's literally one of our real houses in a real village in Solihull. I grew up in the area, and the top photo, and we've had no children's centres since 2015. And also, we've had very little early help support since 2018. So we're really coming at this with a bit of a blank sheet, really, as regards how we're going to start creating a family hub. We're also red flagging on quite a lot of sort of indicators, and we did put our indicators onto a tartan rug that we benchmarked with the England averages, and it's really clear we knew where our hotspots were. But we've got real issues around low birth weight, so babies being literally born into vulnerability. That has a massive knock-on onto our neonatal mortality, which is significantly higher than the England average, and high hospital admissions for little ones, and we nearly double the expected number of children coming into care. And when you look at the England average, which has been a real issue for us. So we've been on an improvement programme, and this is a big part of that. So back in time then, we'll take you to, I was asked to describe the Solihull transformation journey. I kind of thought, actually, when I kind of sat down to look at this, it's more of a trek. It actually felt like we were traversing the Andes. Some days we were literally rolling down that mountain quicker than you could possibly imagine. We stood on many cliff edges and we had to cross lots of rivers. But it was a very, very up and down scenario. We were awarded Transformation Fund 1 money. And we got that from the Department for Education in May 2022. We were the only area through that fund that had no children's centres to convert, so we were kind of on a bit of a steep delivery trajectory from the off. And as most of you know, the turnaround time for that funding bid was quite tight as well. So we had 4.5 weeks to pull together something that was literally a blank piece of paper into a coherent family hub offer. And we actually stuck to it, which was quite amazing for the most part. So the first year or so, the biggest focus was on assets, buildings. Where on earth are we going to put these hubs? What are we going to use? And there were some many and varied options given to us, including a building that had been rumoured to actually not be in the best state of repair. I was avid that we had buildings that were not ostentatious but looked like we cared about, that showed families that they mattered to us. We were given a building with bars at the window and grills. We're like, get those off, straight off. So we just wanted the buildings to feel right, but crucially to be in the areas where we knew they would have the most benefit. And the people that could get to them the easiest had the most potential to benefit. Really equitable access was absolutely critical. And we had really strict location criteria of where we put those hubs. We definitely had challenge to win some hearts and minds. And when Sarah mentioned buy-in, that was kind of the thing that was the forefront of our minds. And we also didn't have enough capital funds, so we had to look to UK Shared Prosperity Fund money and some reserves as well to get us over the line on the capital monies. We established a parent carer panel who were fabulous, did loads of focus groups as a team, and we also then had to put together a future funding model as well, because we've gone from literally nothing to needing a family hub team, buildings, and I'll talk about that a little bit further down. But basically, we've got that part funded by public health moving forwards into the future, part funded by children's services in the council. We have a partnership model. So we have a brilliant family hub team, but they do very little in the way of direct delivery. Their job is to enable the delivery by all the partners. And we were able to do the preconception to 19 mainstream, 25 with additional needs, straight out of the box. So for us, that was a real benefit of actually not having any spaces, because we could go straight from literally nothing to an offer all the way up the age range. We didn't have to sell that different offer because we had literally nothing to go from. So it's a real benefit. If you're in the same boat we were in, you can literally do that straight out of the box. Anything in italics and speech marks in here are little kind of sound bites that I thought might be decent takeaways if anybody's in the same position as us. If you are, good luck and hang on tight, because it was a bit of a journey, but it's well worth it. So what did we end up with? Well, over the last few months, we've opened 4 family hubs in Solihull we are enormously proud of. Our first one at the top left there opened in October last year. It was already working as a kind of hub. It's delivered by a local charity called the Coalbridge Trust, who do some fantastic community development work in the area. And I got to work with a guy that I used to work with years ago when I was doing my teaching practice. And he's now sitting on the board of directors of that charity. And they do some phenomenal work, but it wasn't going to be a government-recognised family hub. So it didn't have the 24 required services, no clinical space, no sensory rooms, anything like that. So we invested in the building they were using. and we took it under council control, but we kept them in as the operators for that building and that hub offer. And it's brilliant because it gives us that really good hybrid option that we see what the voluntary community sector can give, and we actually then capitalise on that across the rest of the network. So they chair the strategic food network, for example, so that plugs the other 3 hubs in straight away to emergency food provision. Really helpful. They do some phenomenal work. We just got some access to a slow cooker project through them as a charity, so really helpful for us. But crucially, it was about not duplicating. There was no point us putting a shiny family hub around the corner. So it was a case of we could use one that was already there. The other 3 are in Elmwoods, is in Smithswood, Riverside in Chelmsley Wood and Hatchford Brook, all areas of vulnerability, complexity, high deprivation, high need. We've also established outreach in other areas of the borough and a digital offer. So our strategic enablers. The picture here is our VIP launch day at Elmwood Hub. It looks a bit like a wedding photo of a slightly dysfunctional but very happy family. One thing I would say, if you're really tackling this from the off, is the elected members and scrutiny boards, health and wellbeing board and cabinet members, surprisingly enough, are your friends. Make friends with them, spend as much time as you can with them. They have been brilliantly supportive from the off. Our voluntary community sector partners have kind of grown into that early help space, so they've been amazing. We've had systems leadership from lots of different agencies that has been the glue that we can then shape and mobilise and escalate things together. And also delivering the transformation for public health. We do universal prevention as our bread and butter. My day job is commissioning health visiting school nursing. So we can appear neutral. We haven't got Ofsted on our shoulders, so well worth getting public health on board or getting them to deliver the transformation. And also having our commission services as lead advocates. We do a lot of work with Birmingham, Coventry and Warwickshire as neighbours, and the 4 directorates that came together with the engine room of our transformation. We're quite an interesting area because though we don't have any TV programmes and not a great profile, we do have an international border that we manage, and that's at Birmingham Airport, which is actually, lesser known fact, in Solihull, but not called Solihull Airport. And that photo is hilarious. It looks like it's in the tropics in that photo. I don't quite know how they managed that in the marketing department, but it gives us a challenge around our migrant families coming through. I was managing a welfare hub a couple of weeks ago for the Lebanese arrivals. We've got quite a lot of interesting different changes in our demographics and working with our Egyptian traveller communities. We want to make sure that the family hub offer meets their needs. We've got very close communities with strong identities. We needed to gain trust of families. They'd lost children's centres, so we needed to gain their trust and also just really kind of shore up and support and upskill our workforce groups. And also we've got to land this in what is a very constrained, stretched and very messy system. It's not neat, as you're more than aware, and that just makes the day job extremely challenging, but we're never bored. Over to Lou.
Hi, everybody. So where we are now in Solihull, like Denise mentioned, we've now opened our 4 family hub buildings and developing our outreach offer. So we just wanted to show you a little bit about inside the buildings. They're photos from all different hubs, but working with our parent carer panel and our young people pre-transformation. The hubs are now the feel that they wanted to see. So the colours, the internal decor, how the space was laid out, everything from the furnishings was all sort of involved our parent carers and our young people. They were also instrumental in the design of our logo as well, which we went through many versions of getting one that was appealing to everybody. But that consistent feel, welcome and branding is something which is flowing throughout both our hubs and our outreach offer as well. So our feedback quite early on, because we've only been open really since May, June, July and September, our most recent hub, is that they're a real invaluable resource for the community. So being used by parents, foster carers, coming in for support and activities, and whilst they're also being able to dip into other services that the hub has on offer to enable that best start in life. And that's a picture of one of our little babies there. It doesn't relate to the case studies, but we've tried to include some of our real families in this. The next case study is around an expectant mum that came into our hub. She's now attending regularly and is quite comfortable to spend time in the hub, let her son, play. She doesn't feel worried or concerned about him being there, but we're also able to speak to mum while she's there, and she's now attended a parent workshop, and we've been able to link her into some housing advice and also some food bank support as well. So we're just building those relationships with families at the moment, having those curious conversations so that when they're in the hub and taking part in one activity, we can also signpost to others. They're appreciative now of that help and will come back for further support. So our focus next is really for our offer to be impactful, and we know that that's only going to be as good as the relationships with our partner agencies across the 24 service expectation areas. We're working with 38 partners, and we've put and counting because that does increase every week. And real integration is our goal, so creating a cohesive and integrated ecosystem. We're running a Fairer Futures project, and that whole aim is around creating that shared vision, outcome and culture of supporting families effectively so that they can build trust and partners aren't handing them off to each other. We can looking at embedding a shared case management system, sharing resources and training, referring and signposting to a shared digital resource, and working together all on an equal footing, so we're recognising each other's expertise. So as part of that work, we've been doing some workforce development work. We've held 2 workshops at the moment, looking at the continuum of need and how we want to get from partners working in isolation through to integration. So our first workshop was in June, where we asked our Family Hub partners this question: where do you think we currently are as a workforce on the continuum? So you can see there, communication was quite strong. There was a little bit of coordination, but a very small percentage of partners felt that we were collaborating and really integrating in our work. And that June session, we really focus the conversation on what partners felt the barriers would be to working within a family hub, but also what the opportunities were as well. And we also asked them what their priorities would be as a group of partners. So our second session focused on one of those priorities, which was around Start for Life. And we asked them the same question again at the start of that session. And you can see there that shift from communication through to coordination has shifted, and we've got a higher percentage now in collaboration. So our next aim in January, when we run our next session, is to hopefully see that collaboration and integration increasing as well.
That's great. Thanks, Lou. So 3 key messages then. Well, first of all, it was a shed load of work in a very short space of time. So saying thank you to the staff and recognising how amazing the team are is absolutely massive. And that event we had back in July there's us with the our mayor cutting the Family Hub's cake. It just felt like an absolute achievement by that point. We had 4 work streams just very quickly. We had one on buildings, one on digital and info, looking at information, one on service and workforce, and a final one on consultation and engagement. And without that coherence around how we were going to tackle this, doing so much at once, I think would have been quite confused. But that really helped, and getting those 24 service areas covered in the way that we have, it just feels like a real buzz now that we've got there. Still a lot of work to do in the integration, as Lou's mentioned, but well on our way. So what have we learned? Well, God, tons, absolutely tons. Quite a few things we'd probably do very differently. But I'd say don't be derailed by the doubters. We had a bit of an in-joke, but we had people who would say, oh God, here we go, computer says no. You'd have people like you can literally kind of asking questions, constantly getting a negative. So I'd just say be tenacious. Tenacity is key. It needs fearless covers to persevere, and as we've already said, all about relationships. Most important thing, build your ecosystem. Keep adding to it, keep watering it, make sure it thrives, maintains. And what it means to us, it's for us and to have a solid platform from having nothing and having those 24 services being delivered together, it's an absolute game changer. And for that gorgeous little man there in one of our stay and plays in Smithswood, that's everything for us to see the families coming in. Final thing, we've done some systems leadership training, and we looked at the natural systems as a way to actually work systems wide. And actually, they're always about optimisation, not maximisation. And so we've kind of got this analogy now that's kind of growing through our Family Hub partnership, that we're a forest and the trees represent the partners. We have constant communication and sharing resources through the roots. We hold each other up in hurricanes, but support and trust are key. So I just wanted to finish on that as an analogy. And finally, a quote there, I won't read it, but you've got it, from Harvard. If you're having a really rough day at work, just go and lose yourself, bathe in the absolute fabulousness of the Centre of the Developing Child at Harvard University website. Reminds us why we're doing it, but it's got a shed load of information on how to get this over the line and how important that ecosystem is. And just really great to be able to share that with you today. Thank you.
Right, so we really are moving up the country. So we're going to Northumberland now. So nice seamless link there from my colleague in terms of trees and forests. So yes. So just to give you some, just to introduce ourselves first. Sorry, my name is Jackie McCormick. I'm Senior Manager for Early Help and Prevention within Northumberland County Council, so within Children's Social Care.
And I'm Helen Lancaster. I am Senior Projects and Development Manager, also within Northumberland County Council.
And we do have Vera, by the way, in terms of a TV programme, although she definitely doesn't speak like a Northumbrian, no. Just so don't get the wrong idea with that. Okay, so just in terms of our approach to integration, for us, our transformation was very, very much about integration. Being in a rural area, sometimes, you really do have to band together. There's not many of you. You have to work together over vast areas. So just to give you some context in terms of Northumberland, Northumberland really is the size of a small country. It's the size of Luxembourg, just so you know. If I am going to go from one of the family hubs in the west and I want to go to the north, so from Hexham to Berwick Family Hub, that takes me 1 hour and 40 minutes to get from one to the other. We did host Dame Andrea Leadsom, and we did actually transport her around in a fire wagon, but a bit more about that later. So we are rural, but we're very much a mix of rural and urban. We have very large farming communities, as you might expect, but we do have more densely populated coastal towns, which were based on ex-fishing communities. More importantly, you'll know for that area, ex-mining communities. We were very lucky, actually, in that we have managed to maintain Sure Starts through children's centres, through to family hubs, since 1998. Even though our politics do flit between Conservative and Labour in terms of a council, we've had real good cross-party support, and I think that's been absolutely vital for us. We started, therefore, with our family hubs with a good base, which made us one of the 14 trailblazers that were awarded that status for family hub development. So, obviously, we are your most northerly family hubs. We have 11 bases, and we also have 7 outreach bases. We're very good at utilising in the rural areas what's already there. Who knew that fire stations in rural areas are open for 3 hours a week for training? The rest of the time they stand empty. So we have taken over a number of fire stations and used some of the capital money to develop play areas and stay in play areas within that, and it works really well. We're also based in 2 military bases as well within Northumberland. So again, able to get in there to do really much needed work in terms of military families. We obviously, therefore, with Berwick, we do border with another country. And this does have its problems, mainly in terms of recruitment and retention. What you'll see there's 2 pictures. The bridge is of Berwick, which borders with Scotland. There you go, thank you. And the other picture is of the Roman wall, Hadrian's Wall, which was actually built to keep the Scots out. So, in terms of recruitment and retention, that is difficulty bordering with a different country. As an example, health visitors are paid significantly more in Scotland than in England. So we often lose a lot of our partners over the border into Scotland, despite the wall which was put there to keep them out. So we're very much part, obviously, of the rural community of practice, and we're very good friends with Cornwall. I know Cornwall are here today. We're at the top of the country. Cornwall are right down at the bottom of our country, but we have a lot of similarities. Yeah, so in terms of integration then, that slide there makes it look really easy. Integration is really hard. It's understanding each other's core business, their performance and QA processes, and not least their service pressures. So we've done a lot of work on relationship building. Relational practice really is at the heart of that integration work. And some of that has been forgetting about Teams or emails, but just picking up the phone and say, you might have picked that up wrong, so let's have a conversation. So we've been worked really hard to foster the trust between different agencies, our 0 to 19 service, our midwifery service, our primary mental health service. So it's what happens with this basically is we have good relationships, relational process, and I alluded to this morning. It's often the processes that thwart us, the data and the information governance. So we are working with midwifery. The personalities are great. We've got a great person in the ICB, our head of midwifery, myself. We talk regularly on the phone. The relationships are strong and we all want the same thing, which basically is access to pregnant women at around 24 weeks pregnant. But we are constantly thwarted by information governance and by data processes. So that's a barrier to integration, which is why I mentioned it this morning. But I'm going to work with Tom and we're going to get it sorted and settled. So in terms of our governance and leadership and how we set this up, we worked hard to get this right from the beginning. We wanted true multi-agency integration for all the reasons that I've said before, and all partners. So we started off with 6 subgroups, and these were centred around the 6 strands of the Family Hub principles. And we obviously built in the Anna Freud 3 principles as well. So I'll hand over to Helen.
Hello, everybody. So Jackie's touched on the governance and leadership and how important it was to get that kind of that high level work owned and attended by partners. And I will say that it is really difficult, but most of our partners have been really engaged and on board with this. And I think giving partners some ownership of the priorities within the work streams has been really helpful in that. So the first, I'm not going to go through all of these in detail, you'll be very pleased to hear. But just looking at the middle photograph there, so this is an example of a service that we've put into place which was identified alongside partners, and we've worked it right through and continue to work through and tweak some of the specification around this. So this is our family wellbeing service. So Workstream 4 identified that there was a real gap around non-clinical support for families, so mums and dads experiencing perinatal mental ill health. So we've worked really closely, particularly with our 0 to 2 partners, as you could imagine, from conception of the idea around this right through to the current position, which is we've got our team, but we still continue to meet to look at where referrals are coming from, what some of the barriers are to kind of getting the support. And it's given us that ability to be really flexible. And I think partners really value that. And then we've really worked hard on an extensive digital offer. And again, I won't go into detail around that, but just to say that with everything you can see on that screen, we have worked extensively. So we've had many, many conversations with partners about, will this work for you and your service? I know we're all working with the same families by and large, but actually it is so important to know that so say our health visiting partners, that they're on board with this and are able to sell this to families and say, look what we've got here. Have you ever thought about accessing this? This is a means of accessing quick support without you having to go to your family hub, etc., etc. So really important around co-production of that digital offer. And also when I say co-production, we've got 9 family panels. So we do lots and all of the things that you see on this screen, we will have worked with family panels on. So this is about co-production with services. One of the more practical things that we did last year was we brought together predominantly our 0 to 2 partners again, and we held 8 events, and they were engagement events. And that was to try and break down some of the silo working at a frontline level. So just to say, when we say family hubs, our family help, which is our early help service, our targeted early help service, is they're fully embedded into the hub. So they're the same kind of service. So that's really helpful. So we brought all of those colleagues together, and it was just really heartening to hear the buzz in the room, and there's been some really, really strong connections made from those events. We didn't just leave it there, because it's important not to have an event and then go, okay, everything's fixed now, see you later. So we have had a multi-agency, so this is frontline staff, have come together on a multi-agency integration task and finish group. And that took away some of the challenges, or some of the perceived challenges that we had in Northumberland, and we've started to address those kind of on a case-by-case basis. Okay, the video, there should be a 1-minute video now.
I've worked with loads of early help workers, lots of family workers, know them really well over the phone, haven't got a clue what they look like. And so one of the great things about working here is because we're in the office next to them, we're getting to know them better, we can pop in and ask them things, they can pop and ask us things. And I think in terms of kind of that support that we can offer families, that makes a huge difference. Just in terms of improved communication, better relationships, it just worked really well. So I'm really excited to see kind of how this moves forward, I think.
It's just a great place to come, isn't it? It's so accommodating. The staff are great, even on reception, you know, there's so many different teams working now. It's just great to know that we're all working together for families.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so in terms of co-location, like I said, in terms, integration, co-location, we've been really successful in some of the larger centres in achieving this. But again, just like integration, co-location is really hard. So we just merrily moved everybody in. We worked with all midwifery leads and health visiting leads, moved them in, and then worked out that actually they were just shutting the doors and still not really integrating. So that was a learning curve for us. We've then changed the fabric of the building so that everybody is based together. There was a real issue around confidentiality. We can't talk about this in front of you, family worker. And actually, we're all working with the same family. So, being able to be free and get the people above to say it's okay to talk in this way about families. But again, like I said earlier, we needed to understand each other's expectations. And there was an awful amount of compromise that had to happen. It's okay, we can compromise on this, we'll do it in a different way if you feel more comfortable with it. Give people what they want. When you do that, then you get a better result. So we have moved a lot of the midwifery booking in clinics, mainly into our rural family hub centres. We've moved a lot in, we've had to change the fabric of those rooms. I've learned so much about midwifery infection control. I can tell you why we need wipeable floors, etc., etc. So this is the thing, get to understand what people are worried about and what means to them and go with it. We've had our registrars which were Sure Starts, for over 15 years now. And that was very difficult to get them in. But again, we started with what they were worried about. They were worried about their printers. They needed a special kind of printer, so we got them special kinds of printers. And it works really well. Most of our children are now registered in our family hubs. They are registered, they walk out the door, and we pounce on them, and then we get them signed up, and we get them signed up for all sorts of interventions. Joint delivery.
So one of the things that we have really strived towards, and again, we'd like a lot more joint delivery, but we've worked really hard to get some joint delivery from family hubs with our partners. And that, I think that's about, working to break down professional silos and, this is my job and that's your job and never the twain shall meet. But it also gives us a chance to increase capacity and reduce duplication. So why wouldn't we do it? So you can see here some of the examples that we've got of where we're working with either some of our main health partners or the one with the gnomes. That's a voluntary community sector provider. So really just looking for those opportunities to work together to bring families or young people, whatever that might be, in and working together to give them messages and support them. And then multi-agency workforce development, I won't go into great detail because I have just had a time sign. So I am now panicking slightly. But we have focused on, and this is, the Family Hub funding has been amazing in so many ways. And one of the things that we focused on with our workforce development was having a strong multi-agency focus. So everything that we've put into place, and this is just a few of the things that we've done, we've focused on bringing agencies together so they are learning and applying the same principles and practice in their work. And the other thing that we've done around workforce development is we haven't ever just trained people and then that's been it. We've developed plans afterwards. We've had steering groups to make sure that the learning that they take away, we can then embed into the offer.
Okay, so there's our so what. I'll not go into it. You've got the slide there. But just to say, we've had a 608% increase in father activity in family hubs. Now, that's family activity. That's not just registration and then you never see them again. So that's quite massive. And 128 increase in family hub membership from March 22 until now. But I just want to end quickly, don't take our word for it. I'm just going to show you a quick video of a family panel member just to end this part. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Will, and this is Melba, and we're part of a family panel at the Ashington Family Hub. And in this video, we're going to answer your most common questions and what you can expect when you come here.
What are family hubs?
The family hubs are a safe space to meet other people and to join in the groups and activities that we host at the family hub for all ages. They're also a place for advice and support for your parenting journey. And to find the nearest family hub, you can either Google family hubs online or visit the family hubs website.
Who can use family hubs?
The family hubs are for parents, grandparents and carers for children. Whether you're in a relationship or you're a single parent, anyone's available to come.
What do family hubs offer?
The Family Hub offer multiple types of groups and activities for families. There's messy play, there's Saturdays, there's also after school clubs, and there's also a way for lads and kids as well. There's also a lot of online support for parents that also help with relationship advice as well.
Who will I meet at the family hub?
There's friendly reception staff, there's Family Hub practitioners, there's family help staff, there's also the health visitors and the midwives, and the children and young people worker as well. There's also new family wellbeing workers, and the family hubs also work with multiple types of services to make sure that families have the best help and options out there.
Before we finish, that's a husband and wife team, and they both come along to our family panel, and they're so vocal and really positive and provide us with lots of ideas and observations.
I just want to say thank you so much to all panel members, and I hope everyone has found it interesting and insightful, and I'm sure there's lots of questions, but we haven't got time. We want people to have a break, so thank you.